Welcome folks to this video, the first in what I hope is a series where I laser focus in on telling the story of one particular character. This time, I present a profile and history of a character who may well be the first and original Sonic fan character. Someone that you may well have heard about before, Ashura, the Glitch Hog. If you're already familiar with Ashura, give yourself a pat on the back. You're a true old school Sonic fan. If not, then let me set the scene. In the 1990s, the internet was in its infancy, and Sonic the Hedgehog related websites were few and far between. Any information that dripped onto the internet about Sonic was hungrily consumed by those lucky enough to have a computer and an internet connection. Those that did probably discovered a few things that the majority of Sonic fans were completely ignorant about at the time. For example, cheat codes for the games were pretty widespread on the internet, and one of the most popular and well-catalogued games during this Wild West era was Sonic the Hedgehog 2. When I first saw that Sonic 2 had a level select and debug mode on the internet, my mind was blown. But one particular feature, or rather glitch, in Sonic 2 piqued my interest more than any other. Apparently, it was possible to play as a weird green version of Sonic that the internet had seemingly dubbed Ashura. Rumours spread about the true identity of Ashura. Who or what was he? Was his presence in the game intentional, evidence of an abandoned evil Sonic character, or was he just a hoax? If he was the result of a glitch, why did this character elicit so much fan art and fan interpretation? In this video, I want to explore the history of a simple palette glitch that evolved into something more. This is the Ashura the Glitch Hog story. First, here's how to actually do the Ashura glitch. The first step is accessing the stage select menu by playing the following tracks in sound test mode: 19, 65, 9, 17. Combine these numbers and you'll have Sonic 2 programmer Yuji Naka's date of birth, the 17th of September, 1965. Then, go to the level select screen by holding A and pressing start at the main menu. Here, play more music tracks in this order: 1992, 1124. Incidentally, these numbers represent Sonic 2's release date, November 24th, 1992. You should hear a ring chime indicating you've done it successfully. Now enter Emerald Hill Zone Act 1 or 2 by holding down the A button and pressing start. You'll know you're in debug mode because the time and score are a little different. When in stage, press B to change Sonic into a debug object and cycle through the sprites until you reach this seemingly invisible object, which is actually one of the large waterfalls. Start placing these waterfalls with the C button. You'll need to push the number next to the timer, which represents how many objects are on screen at once, above 90, and you might need to move around a tiny bit to achieve this. When you surpass 90, you'll notice Sonic's portrait in the bottom left has gone green. Change back into Sonic using the B button, and after a footstep or two, you should transform into the green, glitched version of Sonic. Pretty neat, right? Here's a brief explanation of what's happening under the hood to cause this glitch. The game maintains a sprite status table in RAM. This table contains data about all on-screen sprites. Placing a load of waterfalls results in the RAM allocated to the sprite status table being exceeded. Sprite palette data is located immediately after the sprite status table in RAM, so when the table exceeds its RAM allocation, the excess waterfall sprite data overflows into the color data, completely throwing off Sonic's palette and a number of other objects' palettes too. The glitch only works in Emerald Hill Zone because it requires the waterfall, and the waterfall is the only sprite that causes this glitch because it's made of 18 chunks, meaning it's the only sprite large enough to comfortably push the sprite status table over limit enough to impinge on the palette data. The truth is, there isn't one consistent result of the Ashura glitch. A variety of different Sonics can be created using this method. Some variants are slightly more blue or more red, but I like the simple green and black Ashura the best. Now what about the name? Ashura is Japanese, referring to a fierce demonic demigod-type figure that has its origins in Hinduism. The Ashura name felt fitting for the glitched Sonic, because the glitch was underdocumented back in the day and notoriously hard to pull off, and some very early profiles of Ashura characterized him as only appearing to certain players, like some sort of apparition. Fan art would spread across the internet, but one particular piece of art showing Ashura with a fang and a big patch of black anime hair was the most widespread. I think Ashura's early popularity is down to two factors. First, this was a time before there were dozens of Sonic characters. The prospect of a new in-game Hedgehog character, although unofficial, was pretty exciting. Secondly, as Ashura was just a palette glitch, his personality was a blank slate with a hint of mystery about him. He was the perfect character for a growing DeviantArt generation to work with. Rumours began to spread that the Ashura glitch could be achieved in other games. One prominent example was in Sonic R, though this was revealed to be an elaborate hoax by a modder. I'll reiterate that this was the 90s, a simpler time when hoaxes excited the imagination and fooled plenty of people. But who was the progenitor of this glitch character, and who bestowed on it the name of Ashura exactly? Ashura's origins formed a semi-regular topic of conversation during the early years of the online Sonic community, but one post on the Sonic Retro forums by Kushami in 2008 shed some light on where Ashura came from. He wrote, "This is the sordid, unimpressive tale of Ashura. Charles Mugg used to run a Sonic website on his college account in the early 90s, which was devoted to the Japanese stuff from the games. This is something which was pretty rare back then. Out of the 5 or 6 Sonic sites which existed back then, his was the only site which had content that was, I guess I'll use the term Sega Sonic. Later on, he discovered the palette glitch and decided to post the trick on his website and named it Ashura. He also posted a lot of other stuff you could do in the games along with it. It's where a lot of the first debug tricks showed up on the internet. This stuff is all common knowledge now that the games have been completely emulated, ripped apart and disassembled. But this was something like 1993 or 94 at the time, and most computers struggled with even emulating Genesis games. He also drew the artwork of Ashura with the bang that floats around in ultra-bad 1990s scan quality. Thanks to the Wayback Machine, I was able to do some internet archaeology and dig up Mugg's old website. The earliest archive of the site is from 1996, and if we click on the link to view Sonic 2 tricks, we can see the first ever description of the Ashura glitch. Interestingly, Ashura is described here as Sonic's brother, which is a cool idea, and very reminiscent of Manic the Hedgehog from Sonic Underground. The description doesn't really give much more personality to the character. Mugg, as well as being interested in Japanese translations, was also an artist, and it seems that his artwork formed the basis for Ashura's edgy and sometimes sinister characterization. In 2017, Brady Hartle, an old friend of Mugg's who worked on the opening animation for Sonic Mania, posted 2 high-quality scans of Mugg's Ashura artwork on Twitter. The full colour shot has the kanji for Akuma in red in the background, another word for a demon in Japanese. And on the left is a date, the 25th of June 1997. This is the earliest known piece of Ashura fan art. I would suggest that the glitch was named Ashura simply because of Muggs' interest in Japanese. There may well be a deeper reason for the name, and indeed, the reason for the name has been discussed since the 1990s. You can find examples of people querying the name as far back as 97 and 98 on Google group discussions, which is kind of crazy. Here's a thought. Is Ashura the Hedgehog the first ever Sonic original character? I'm sure kids doodled their own original characters in the 90s, but was he the first to gain any real notoriety? As I can't ascertain the original date of Mugg's college website, I can't say for certain, because maybe the hoax character Rankles the Otter from 1994 might take the crown instead, but that's a discussion for another video. Here's something interesting about Ashura's legacy. The popular Archie Comics villain Scourge was actually based on Ashura. Scourge started life as a character created by Ken Penders, known as Evil Sonic or Anti-Sonic. Anti-Sonic was a sunglasses and leather jacket clad Sonic from a reverse universe in which Sonic is a baddie. Much later, under the penmanship of Ian Flynn, Scourge was altered to have green fur, the result of a chaos energy infused punch, and took to wearing a blackish grey crown on his head. In short, Scourge looked a lot like Ashura. So much so that fans began to speculate that the character was based on him. Sonic Super Special Magazine Issue 1 from October 2011 explicitly confirmed that Scourge's redesign was directly inspired by Ashura, which should come as no surprise, as apparently Ian Flynn's pre-Archie Sonic fanfiction occasionally featured appearances by the Green Hedgehog. Pretty cool to think that multiple people who have worked on Sonic properties are personal fans of this weird character. For what it's worth, Ken Penders retains the right to Scourge, so we probably won't be seeing him anytime soon. And fans have asked Flynn if he'll make Ashura a comic character, but that won't be happening either. One final question arises: have Sega themselves ever acknowledged Ashura the Hedgehog? Unfortunately, I believe the answer is no, they haven't. This is both a shame and a surprise. A grey and red palette glitch of Knuckles exists in Knuckles Chaotix, which fans have dubbed Wechnia. In Sonic Mania, if you play as Knuckles and Knuckles, then you can catch a glimpse of a possible nod to Wechnia during the game's ending sequence. This is unconfirmed, but it's a shame that a similar Ashura Easter egg didn't find its way into Sonic Mania. The even bigger disappointment is the fact that the Ashura glitch is reportedly fixed in the 2013 mobile port of Sonic 2. I've heard varying reports about this, so I'm not 100% sure. Fortunately, fans seem ready and willing to keep Ashura's legacy alive. There's an absolute load of ROM hacks and mods inserting Ashura into an array of different Sonic games. And in the fan game realm, Ashura is alive and well, appearing in a bucket load of games, including being an unlockable character in popular fan game Sonic Ball, and being added to the immensely popular Sonic Robo Blast 2 by fans. There's also Ashura Dark Reign, an old fan game built by modding Unreal Tournament 2004. The project was due to star Ashura as the game's villain, but has long since been abandoned. In 2009, it looked promising enough to be covered in the UK's PC Gamer magazine, a rare honour for a fan game. That's not to mention the sheer amount of quality art and fanfiction that Ashura regularly appears in. Don't worry Ashura, the fans have got your back. And that concludes our profile of Ashura the Hedgehog. Glitch, demon, Sonic's brother, inspiration for Scourge. Ashura is many things to many people. But to me, he'll always be a nostalgic figure that I'll associate with my earliest memories of trolling the internet. Thanks for joining me on this journey. I'd love to do more mini profiles focusing on a single character, so if you have anyone in mind you'd like me to cover, let me know in the comments. I'm going to do a string of Sonic characters, but I love Mario, Crash, and other franchises too, so the scope is wider than just Sonic. If you enjoyed, please consider giving the video a like and subscribing for more gaming stuff in the future. Thanks, and hopefully, I'll see you next time. Hey folks, I wanted to post a short update video, a kind of addendum to my Ashura the Hedgehog profile that contains a few things I've learned since that video came out. If you've not seen that video, I recommend you check it out before watching this one. Thanks to anyone who enjoyed and commented on that one, by the way. For those needing a super abridged catch-up, it's possible to create a glitchy green and black version of Sonic in Sonic 2's debug mode using Emerald Hill Zone's waterfalls. This glitch was discovered by a fan, Charles Mugg, who mysteriously named it Ashura. Now you're all caught up. Regarding my video, I received a few really interesting questions in the comments about things that I didn't really address and didn't know the answer to at the time. In response, I did some more testing and research so I could provide an update to everyone and answer a few common questions I received. I can also offer a little more insight into Ashura's origins too. The most interesting question I received was, what about Super Ashura? I didn't even think to initiate a super transformation in my original video, so this struck me as a really intriguing question. Does Ashura have a super form? And if so, what does Super Ashura look like? Fans have interpreted Super Ashura in a variety of different colours. I've seen a purple Super Ashura in popular fan game Sonic Ball. I've seen a lighter pinky purple variation in similarly popular Sonic Robo Blast 2. I've seen mods of Sonic Mania that have a deep blue super form for Ashura. And finally, I've seen some mods of Sonic 2 that have an all-black variant. And that's just a smattering of fan interpretations. There's plenty of fan art in which Ashura turns golden, partially golden, or simply gains a green aura. Now before I go on, I would be interested to hear people's preference. What do you think is the best colour for Super Ashura? Now it's time to address what actually happens in-game. Let's see Super Ashura's true colour. If you want to play as Super Ashura, you'll have to input the level select code first, then in the level select menu, input the debug mode code. You can actually input multiple codes here, so next input the code to gain access to Supersonic right away. For some reason I had to input this code twice to get it to work. I figured there was two scenarios to test. First, transforming into Supersonic before triggering the Ashura waterfall glitch, and second, triggering the glitch before transforming into Supersonic. It turns out both of these scenarios yield the same result, so let's go with the second one. First, we'll do the Ashura glitch. Check out my initial video for more details on how to pull this off. Then we'll give ourselves 50 rings. Finally, we'll double jump, and there we have it. This, my friends, is Super Ashura. Admittedly, not quite as exciting as normal Ashura because the colours are very similar to Supersonic, the only difference being Super Ashura's blue eyes and outline. As there are multiple different Ashura glitch palettes, even the blue eyes aren't guaranteed. If you end up with a black-eyed Ashura, you'll get a black-eyed Super Ashura too, making him identical to Supersonic. I guess a golden Super Ashura makes sense because it seems most hedgehogs adopt a golden hue when they go super. That goes for Sonic, Shadow, and Silver, anyway. I'll admit, I was hoping Ashura's black patch of fur would remain, but alas, that's not the case. If we slow down Ashura's super transformation, we can see what's going on here. For one frame, Ashura disappears, and Sonic's blue palette returns just before the transformation is complete. It seems that triggering the super transformation re-establishes Sonic's correct palette, with the possible exception of the blue outline that also affects Tails, enemies, Dr. Robotnik, and other assorted sprites after the Ashura glitch. What's a little more interesting is that when you run out of rings, Super Ashura will power down back into Sonic, but you'll notice that regular Sonic now has blue eyes too. Let's run through a couple more questions. Can Ashura enter the special stage? He can enter, but entering obviously loads a whole new level which then corrects Sonic's colour palette. When the special stage is done and the players return to Emerald Hill Zone, Ashura is gone and Sonic is back. Next, does a similar glitch happen when entering debug mode with Tails or Knuckles? The answer is no, because the waterfall object required for the glitch isn't accessible when playing debug mode with Tails and Knuckles. Tails can't actually place any objects at all in debug mode, and Knuckles has a limited array of only 2 objects to transform into in Emerald Hill Zone. Finally, does the glitch work on other versions of the game? How about in the mobile Christian Whitehead port of the game from 2013? I speculated that the Ashura glitch had been fixed in the mobile port, but this isn't entirely accurate. The mobile port uses a totally different engine, so rather than being fixed, the issue simply doesn't occur at all in Emerald Hill Zone. However, the mobile port contains a playable Hidden Palace zone tucked away, and if you're playing as Supersonic, the occasional palette glitch can occur underwater. Take a look at this screenshot. Looks a lot like Ashura. Unfortunately, I tried playing around but I could not replicate this, but the sources I used are in the video description. I guess Ashura is in the mobile port after all. On earlier beta versions of Sonic 2, however, the Ashura glitch is in place. The glitch exists in the Simon Y prototype beta dump of the game from August 1992. What's interesting about this version of the game is that the scrapped Hidden Palace zone can be accessed. This zone also contains a foreground waterfall object similar to the ones found in Emerald Hill Zone that are required to cause the glitch. Lo and behold, in debug mode, a palette corruption can be achieved in Hidden Palace Zone by spamming waterfalls everywhere, though Sonic's palette only glitches out when he goes underwater. And the palette corruption is a lot more extreme, even affecting Tails as well. Is this Ashura? Yeah, I'd like to think so. Hidden away in Hidden Palace Zone. On a final note, I mentioned Brady Hartle in my original video. Brady has worked on Skullgirls and Sonic Mania, and he shared a few memories of Ashura with me on Twitter that add a little bit of extra flavour to the origin of the character. Brady offered an explanation as to exactly why Ashura was chosen as a name by Charles Mugg, the individual who first documented the glitch. Ashura is a type of Buddhist demon, with Akuma being another word for demon or devil in Japanese. The Ashura glitch was discovered by Mugg at the height of Street Fighter II's popularity, and in particular at a time when rumours about a secret character called Sheng Long existing in Street Fighter II were rampant. These rumours were false, but they were heightened by an April Fool's joke put out by Electronic Gaming Monthly, who claimed that Sheng Long was Ryu and Ken's trainer, and was indeed an unlockable character. Although unconfirmed, legend has it that the Sheng Long rumour influenced the creation of Akuma, who was designed to be an evil counterpart of Ryu's, and was shrouded in mystery, debuting as a hidden character in Super Street Fighter II Turbo in 1994. Brady explained that the Ryu and Akuma dynamic and the rumours and mystique surrounding Akuma inspired Mugg to name the green hedgehog Ashura. Akuma and Ashura certainly have a couple of similarities. The appearance of both are pretty similar to the protagonists of their respective series, and they're both hidden characters, not to be found by casual players. The name Ashura was inspired by and paid tribute to Akuma. One final thing to note. Brady also let me know that the iconic artwork of Ashura done by Mugg was done at Brady's request. The image that launched 1,000 pieces of fan art. It really makes me wonder whether the glitch character would have taken off in the same way if that particular piece of art wasn't so widely circulated on the early internet. My guess is probably not. What do you think? That's all I've got for this video. I just wanted to provide a little update on Ashura, and hopefully I've left no stones unturned this time. I'll be working on more Sonic profiles and also general gaming videos as well in the future, so if you want, feel free to subscribe and keep up to date with all of that stuff. Thanks again for the positive feedback on the Ashura video, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Hey folks, who doesn't enjoy palette swaps? Whether they're official characters, fan creations, or the result of a bizarre glitch, there's something fun about seeing essentially a recolored clone of a popular character, doubly so when they go on to develop their own story, following and legacy. The Sonic fan community, perhaps more so than any other fandom, is fond of taking unofficial palette swap characters and making them cult heroes. That's what happened with Ashura, the green palette glitch of Sonic from Sonic 2, and to a lesser extent, that's also what happened with the topic of today's video. Someone who feels a little bit like Ashura's little brother, Wechnia, the Echidna. Just for a bit of context, back in the internet's early Wild West days, I was utterly fascinated by reading about weird, wacky discoveries made in Sonic games that people posted about online. For some reason, of all the early discoveries and secrets, the idea of being able to play as glitched palette swaps like Ashura and Wechnia got me the most excited. Why? Well, there's something cool about pulling off a fun glitch, no doubt, but also because of the mythology that developed around this dynamic duo. This video has been a long time coming, and I'm going to run you through who or what Wechnia is, how to pull off the glitch yourself, where the name came from, and how Wechnia's influence on the Sonic series is still being felt somehow. I really enjoy doing these Sonic character profiles, and this is my 18th. Wow. Check out the playlist for more, and please let me know who you want me to cover next. Maybe a Chaotix member, someone more modern, someone from the comics, etc. There's so many possibilities. Anyway, without further ado, let's talk Wechnia. The story of Wechnia starts with Knuckles Chaotix. Knuckles Chaotix released in 1995 for Sega's 32X hardware add-on for the Mega Drive, and has only ever been re-released briefly once. Coupling that fact with the low 32X sales numbers means that Chaotix is one of the more obscure Sonic games out there. Certainly, before the age of easy emulation, Knuckles Chaotix was an exotic mystery to a lot of Sonic fans. It looked awesome in magazines, but hadn't really been played by that many people. I certainly didn't know anyone that owned it, so I could only look on admiringly as characters from this mysterious game appeared in Sonic the Comic. Knuckles Chaotix is unique. It differs from other classic Sonic games in a few major ways. The main difference is you play as two characters at once, connected by an elastic band of ring energy that can be used to reach tricky spots and can fire off the player at ultra high speed, because you can have one of the characters hold and then release to give an immense burst of momentum. This results in Chaotix's levels being huge, just as sprawling vertically as horizontally, to accommodate for this ultra-fast style of gameplay. The game featured 5 zones with multiple acts that were played in a random order, most of them being more maze-like in structure than their other 2D Sonic counterparts. Now, this isn't a full review of Knuckles Chaotix, but everyone seems to have an opinion on this game, so I'll very quickly share my thoughts. First of all, I think the music is absolutely brilliant, and that's not up for debate. I also really like the amount of characters the game has, and think that the entire Chaotix all have cool designs. I'm also very fond of the ultra-colourful graphics that try to show what the 32X was capable of. And the gameplay is fun to an extent. I do find the game to be a little chaotic, pun intended, but it's the lacking level design that really results in most of the zones being a lot less memorable than other Sonic classics by quite a large margin. In reality, I replay it less than Sonic 1 through Sonic & Knuckles, but I do still enjoy it, don't get me wrong. I like the speed that the game's elastic band mechanic offers. It's a cool idea. Honestly, I wish it was included in Sonic Origins so that more fans had the chance to play it. It's a contentious game, so let me know your Knuckles Chaotix hot takes in the comments. Now, what we now know about the history of Knuckles Chaotix is that it evolved out of an earlier prototype called Sonic Crackers. ROMs of Crackers are available online. When you boot them up, you'll see that Crackers shared the elastic band powering concept, but it starred Sonic and Tails instead of Knuckles. Crackers was originally designed for the vanilla Mega Drive, but the game morphed into a 32X project, and Sonic and Tails at some point were dropped in favour of Knuckles and a cohort of brand new playable characters, a whopping 7 in total, each with their own unique abilities. Alongside Knuckles, you have Team Chaotix, consisting of Mighty the Armadillo, of the old Sega Sonic the Hedgehog arcade game, Espio the Chameleon, Charmy Bee, and Vector the Crocodile. There's also the lumbering robots Heavy and Bomb 2, of course, who slow the player down. And that's it, right? That's all. Well, not quite. There is this other character, if I can even call them that. A strange white echidna who looks just like Knuckles, called Wechnia, who's gone on to develop a bit of a cult following amongst fans. Wechnia is, of course, not an official character, but a bizarre palette glitch, just like good old Ashura the Hedgehog. This is how to play as Wechnia. So first you're going to want to go to the main menu, click on Options and then Color Test. What you're going to want to do is alter the first 6 numbers on the left hand side to read 06, OB, 11, and 040004. After doing so, press the Start button and you'll be taken back to the main menu. Now, you'll have the Stage Select option available. You'll be able to select your player character in the Stage Select menu. Scroll through the options and you'll notice a strange entry. Not a name, but a list of 10 stars. If you select to play as the 10-starred character, you'll get your first glimpse of Wechnia, who looks just like Knuckles, with white-grey fur, red eyes and gloves, and a very dark snout. As you play, what should become evident is that Wechnia doesn't just have a weird palette, but everything about him is a little odd. When he runs, it looks like he's headbanging. Sometimes his body disappears, leaving just an arm behind, and curiously, Wechnia also possesses some animations that Knuckles doesn't have. Watch out though, because Wechnia causes a guaranteed game crash under certain circumstances, like if you lean on the edge of a platform. I have heard that in the final version of the game will sometimes crash as soon as Wechnia touches the ground, but that wasn't the case for me. I was able to play for quite a while as Wechnia, but if you do get that initial game-breaking glitch, you can always try a ROM from an earlier prototype version of the game, where the Wechnia glitch is also present. All of the prototype versions of the game that we're currently aware of have the Stage Select menu option enabled by default, which is quite handy. So that's the Wechnia glitch. But why does it even happen? Well, that's an interesting question. I mentioned Sonic Crackers earlier, and it appears that Sonic and Tails were originally going to be included as playable characters in an early version of Knuckles Chaotix, but were eventually removed. It's worth noting that Sonic and Tails do make an appearance at the very end of the good ending in the final version of the game, appearing on the Tornado behind the Chaotix crew, but they're not playable, and Sonic has tan legs, which just looks wrong. So when the player accesses the Stage Select menu and selects a character to play as, Mighty the Armadillo actually occupies the first character slot, and Wechnia, or the 10 stars, is the second. The current prevailing theory is that Mighty was added to the game as a direct replacement for Sonic during the development process. The similarities between Sonic and Mighty's sprite work, for example, is pretty evident. Tails, on the other hand, was simply removed and not replaced with anyone. Tails-related sprites have been data mined from various different versions of Knuckles Chaotix ROMs as evidence of this, but Wechnia himself is in fact a remnant of Tails' inclusion and deletion. If you play the version 1207 prototype ROM, the link to Tails becomes even clearer. The good folks over at the cutting room floor have been able to slightly tinker with the 1207 prototype's code to restore much more of Tails. In this version, you'll be able to mash the jump button to make Wechnia levitate and float in the air. The floating, of course, is just like Tails' power of flight. You'll also notice that Wechnia is golden, and his animation is a little smoother than in the final version of the game, though crashing is still a big issue. All versions of the game contain a character color palette corresponding to Tails, which is the palette coloring Wechnia here. In the final version of the game, Wechnia's palette pointer points to Mighty's palette, which explains Wechnia's black, grey, red and yellow colour scheme. The fact that Wechnia is a remnant of a deleted character, aka Tails, also explains why the game is prone to crashing under certain circumstances. When you're leaning on a ledge, for example, the game is trying to load sprites for animations that don't exist for Wechnia. In short, Wechnia ended up being a weird admixture of 3 different characters. He's based off of Tails, uses Knuckles' sprite sheet, and uses Mighty's palette, Mighty's wall jump ability, and if you happen to jump in a special stage, he uses Mighty's assets there too. So that's the Wechnia glitch. But let's get a little more esoteric here. Wechnia isn't an officially assigned name. So you might be wondering, who gave him that name? And who made this discovery in the first place? How did Wechnia become so well known and relatively popular that fans have made Wechnia fan art and Wechnia mods and other cool Wechnia stuff the past couple of decades? Well, just like Ashura before him, Wechnia's history is traceable thanks to the power of the World Wide Web. If you recall, Ashura was identified and named by artist Charles Mugg in the 1990s. Wechnia isn't quite that old, but with the power of Google, we can also track down the man who gave Wechnia his rather unoriginal name. That man was Pachuca, the former webmaster of the website Sonic Cult. In a write-up about Knuckles Chaotix debug mode from 2004, Pachuca compiled some screenshots originally uploaded by a dude named Rahan Akero to his own website, who may well have been responsible for discovering the glitch, or at least making the internet aware of it. The Wayback Machine has a snapshot of Rahan's GeoCities site from 2001. Wow, that sentence made me nostalgic. Raham explains that after 8 hours of playing around, he stumbled upon the stage select menu and grabbed a camcorder to get some footage. If you look closely, you might see Rahan mention a removed glitch character. We'll probably never know, but it'd be fascinating to know whether in 2001, Rahan was the first guy outside of Sega to see the Wechnia glitch or not. Anyway, in the Sonic Cult write-up, Pachuca dubs the glitch character Wechnia, a portmanteau of white and echidna. Not amazingly original, I know, but the name has stuck. Here, for example, is the Knuckles Chaotix page on Sonic Cult. There's Wechnia front and center with a tail shadow. Ah, very clever. I see what you did there. This might well be the first piece of Wechnia fan art out there. I wasn't able to find anything older. I think it's pretty cool. I've mentioned Sonic Cult in other videos. The site was a bit of a hub for enthusiastic Sonic fans and hackers, and was instrumental in making me and the wider fanbase aware of really obscure characters like Honey the Cat, for example. Sonic Cult might well be a long distant memory to some, and for younger fans, it might be something you've never heard of before. But it was one of the internet's most important Sonic sites when it came to making intriguing discoveries by hacking the old games. At the height of its power, Sonic Cult was known for its edgy style of humour and dramatic feuds with other Sonic sites. But all that aside, Sonic Cult deserves a hearty salute for helping to discover and popularise the likes of Honey and Wechnia. If you want to check the site out now, you can find intact echoes of it on the Wayback Machine. The unfortunate difference between Wechnia and Ashura is that Wechnia's discovery wasn't accompanied by any fan headcanon theories about Wechnia's identity from its discoverer. That's a shame, but instead I have vague, half-forgotten memories of reading long-deleted forum posts theorizing about Wechnia's identity, with some fan ideas aligning with my own. I liked to try to fill in the blanks myself too. The Fleetway comic books always presented the Special Zone, home of the Chaotix, as a weird place, akin to the realm seen in Steve Ditko's Doctor Strange. As such, I always thought of Wechnia as an odd, ultra-powerful mirror version of Knuckles from another dimension linked to the Special Zone. Not necessarily evil, but just completely out of place in the company of Knuckles and co. Because of his ultra-glitchy nature, I thought of him to be a dimension hopper, kind of like America Chavez in that Doctor Strange movie actually, with 1 foot in Knuckles' dimension and 1 foot in his own. What do you think? Please do share with me your headcanon theories too. Maybe the fact that Wechnia can crash the game makes him a bit of a progenitor of the whole Sonic creepypasta craze. Shortly after Wechnia's discovery on Sonic Cult, news spread to other Sonic sites. In April 2004, Secrets of Sonic Team, another great Sonic site at the time, wrote up a piece about the discovery, dubbing the white echidna Wechina. Doesn't quite roll off the tongue the same way, does it? A few variants of the spelling exist, but I assure you it's Wechnia. My research showed that a Wechidna does exist, but he's a more recent creepypasta-style fan creation, so don't get the two mixed up. So Ashura had a pretty deep impact on the Sonic fan community and inspired both Scourge and Surge. One final question remains then. What impact, if any, has Wechnia had? Well, interestingly, the Archie, IDW, and Fleetway comic book series have all boasted characters that fans have sometimes assumed were inspired by Wechnia. First, there's Dr. Zachary from Fleetway's Sonic the Comic. I've covered him in more detail before, but the short version of his story is that he's an evil, old, white-furred echidna and a nemesis of Knuckles. Obviously, the similarity between Dr. Zachary and Wechnia seems to come down solely to their colour, but honestly, I don't think Zachary is at all influenced by Wechnia, because I imagine the glitch would have been unknown to Fleetway's writers and artists. I've never heard mention of Wechnia as a distinct influence. Moving on. The Archie comics also featured a villainous, white-furred albino echidna called Dr. Finitavus. What is it with these echidna doctors? Finitavus debuted before the discovery of the Wechnia glitch as a normal echidna, but then reappeared in 2007 with his new white colour scheme, leading fans to wonder about a Wechnia inspiration. As far as I know, a link between the two is unconfirmed, but it is possible. Now, the IDW comics also have an evil doctor named Dr. Starline. He's something of a protege of Dr. Eggman's. Starline is a little different to the others because he's a platypus rather than echidna. Starline's colour scheme with his grey-white fur, dark beak and red eyes is reminiscent of Wechnia. But in the case of Starline, any conjecture has been confirmed by writer Ian Flynn, who's directly cited Wechnia as an inspiration for Dr. Starline. Just as Surge was something of a tribute to Ashura, so is Starline a tribute to Wechnia, one of a trio of characters inspired by relatively famous Sonic glitches. Think back to Knuckles' Chaotix. Wechnia's name isn't there, remember? Instead, there's a line of stars. Get it? Starline? The connection between Starline and Wechnia could have been even stronger, evidenced when you take a snoop at some Starline concept art. In one design, Starline has longer, echidna-style dreadlocks and coloured eyes that would have presumably been red, making him look even more like Wechnia. Here's another iteration of an early Starline design, with a Frankenstein's monster look. This is quite clever, considering Wechnia is a bit of a Frankenstein's monster himself, a hybrid made by stitching together Tails, Knuckles and Mighty. I like it, but I'm fond of Starline's final design too. The tribute to Wechnia is subtle and allows Starline to have his own distinct personality. But I do think it's pretty awesome to see unofficial, fan-championed characters like Wechnia influence official Sonic media. Talking of official Sonic media, there is one more fun Wechnia fact to mention. If you play through as Knuckles and Knuckles in Sonic Mania, there's a very sneaky blink and you'll miss it reference to Wechnia during the game's ending. I'll show you it and see if you can spot it. Okay, let me explain. An alarm starts sounding, turning the screen red. Take a look at the palette of the second Knuckles here. It's different, with deep red eyes and lighter fur. Definitely a Wechnia reference. Along with that, and just like Ashura, Wechnia has maintained cult popularity among Sonic fans, appearing in plenty of cool fan art and plenty of mods too. I've seen Wechnia mods for Sonic 3 Angel Island Revisited, Friday Night Funkin', and strangely Sonic R. But oddly, I've not seen a Sonic Roboblast 2 Wechnia, so if there's any modders out there, this is an assignment for you. It really goes to show you just how passionate Sonic fans are, keeping the flame of so many characters alive, even when they're not official. Before we finish, let me tell you a final secret. The truth is, Knuckles Chaotix is a bit of a buggy game, and Wechnia isn't the only character with a weird palette glitch issue. It's possible to cause a multitude of different palette glitches by playing as Wechnia and getting a bunch of power-ups, including the character swap item. I've not been able to pull this off, but I've seen evidence of it on Reddit, so there you go. More simply, it's also possible to cause characters' palettes to glitch out by slowly approaching the start of a boss area. Not all of the palette swaps achievable by following this method look very aesthetically pleasing, but some, like Mighty here, work quite well. There's so many glitch characters up for grabs here, who wants to name one? And that is just about everything there is to say about Wechnia, the glitchy echidna. Thank you for joining me. This one was a lot of fun to put together. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Hey folks, if you didn't see, I posted a video in December covering a bunch of Sonic glitches, including good old Blue Knuckles, and I asked all of you to let me know any other glitches I should cover. A couple of people mentioned Rankles the Otter. So, here goes. You might have heard the name before. He's often considered the center of the first major hoax in Sonic the Hedgehog history. Rankles is one of those relatively obscure figures that everyone seems to have heard of, but nobody knows the full story of. So, in this video, I want to cover the complete story of Rankles. Who he is, where he came from, whether he's real, and what his legacy is. To do that, today, I have the honor of diving into the world of magazines with you all. Magazines might seem like a foreign concept to those of younger generations, but prior to the age of the internet, they were pretty much the primary way for gamers to keep up with upcoming games, see exclusive preview screenshots, read some reviews, and occasionally even read interviews with major people in the industry like Yuji Naka. I have amazingly fond memories of reading various gaming magazines through the years. I remember the official PlayStation magazine. It's the first I remember buying on a regular basis. It was so rich with cool pictures and always came with a demo disc, which could provide a whole weekend's worth of fun. I also fondly remember the Game Master magazine, which spawned from the cult TV show of the same name and covered all manner of different consoles. As a PlayStation owner, all I could do was salivate over all of the awesome Nintendo 64 coverage. Oh, and for a while I picked up the official Nintendo magazine once I got my GameCube, which often came with very creative free gifts, like this cute Mario encyclopedia and these Super Smash Bros. Melee trading cards. Anyway, the magazine that contains the entire legacy of Rankles is one that I never personally read, the official Sega magazine. It launched in 1994 and after less than a year, morphed into the Sega Saturn magazine. Herein, in the pages of this mag, lies the legend of Rankles. The saga of Rankles starts with issue number 11, which released in November 1994. Man, 1994, what a year. The Sega magazine really gives us a glimpse into the past. Imagine, Sonic & Knuckles has just released. The Lion King is the hottest movie in cinemas. Bret Hart is the WWF champion. And, Ernie Els is the hottest golfer in the world. As is typical for a magazine of this period, Sega magazine is full of amazing adverts. Some have a real sense of style, like this tasteful ad for Mickey Mania. Others are edgy with absolutely no tact. Here's a topless man advertising the edgiest sounding game ever, SS Lucifer. Or how about this? Psycho Pinball, the most explosive pinball game ever. I'm sure it's literally just pinball, dude. Anyway, the Sega magazine team were still a little bit giddy after the release of Sonic & Knuckles the month prior. In the wake of the game's success, the magazine hosted a unique competition, promising to pay £1 million to anybody who could find and provide a photograph of Rankles the Otter, a supposed hidden character in Sonic & Knuckles. The magazine was kind enough to share a piece of artwork depicting Rankles the Otter. A green monstrosity with a malformed head and spiky feet, Rankles has the look of a dollar store Knuckles. You might well have seen this page before, because this is Rankles' main claim to fame. He is effectively a joke character, a hoax, if you will. Though, Rankles isn't a particularly convincing hoax, because immediately afterwards, the magazine readily admits that the challenge is impossible, because 1, Tom Guise, one of the magazine's writers, made Rankles up, and 2, sadly, the Sega team don't have £1 million to give. One thing to note here is that the magazine is from November, so this wasn't an April Fool's joke specifically, as you might have read elsewhere. It was just a random bit of fun. As a bit of a compromise, the Sega team offer up a second, easier competition. The first reader to send in a picture of the Sonic 3 and Knuckles end screen could win a multi-mega, one of Sega's mid-1990s hardware misadventures. A combination Mega Drive, Sega CD, and portable CD player, significantly bulkier than your average portable CD playing device, the multi-mega enjoyed a short production run and actually never released in Japan. While not quite worth the Rankles £1 million, if you do own one nowadays, they're worth a decent amount of money on eBay due to their novelty and scarcity. It's kind of funny, but having trawled through issue 11 in full, there are a couple of references to otters peppered throughout the issue. For example, in a little showcase of Sonic & Knuckles' features, the writers commend the ability to play Sonic 2 as Knuckles, stating that if you don't own Sonic 2 already, then buying it is better than getting your fingers bitten off by a rabid otter. I can't help but feel the guys are painting a bit of a picture of Rankles here. He looks friendly enough, but I actually think he's probably a little bit psycho. In the same issue, by the way, there was also an Earthworm Jim competition. To win an animation cell from the TV series and an Earthworm Jim wristwatch, you had to answer this simple question: what's the name of the bump in the middle of a worm? You know, the sexy bit. The Rankles saga continued a few months later in issue 14. The ads are even better in this one. Here's a legendary ad for Mr. Nuts, a game that I actually owned on Game Boy. Grab your nuts. Very subtle. And we've got an ad for Probotector. If you're an American watching and you've never heard of it, then this is actually a repackaged version of Super Contra. Apparently the Contra series was deemed too violent for us Brits, so the two main characters were replaced by playable robots instead. Anyway, in issue 14, Sega Official Magazine received a delightful little letter from an avid Rankles fan. The letter reads, "Dear Sega Magazine, ever since you printed your feature about Rankles the Green Otter, my 6-year-old son Christopher has been obsessed with him. Can you please tell me if he will appear in a game, e.g. Rankles and Knuckles? Yours sincerely, Nick Jolly." The confused response from Sega Magazine reads, "I don't know quite how to put this, but Rankles isn't a real game character at all. We made him up as a bit of a joke, you see. However, we personally think he's got a bit more going for him than Tails or Rosie, and reckon he'll be great in a game, but we'll try to get more Rankles appearances in the magazine to make up." The original letter was sent in with a charming little piece of Rankles fan art. Cute. Despite Sega Magazine's promise at the end of their reply, there isn't much more of Rankles in the magazine, the liars. In fact, after scouring back issues, I could only find one more Rankles mention at all. For our final bit of Rankles lore, we'll be jumping to issue 20, but seeing as I scoured issues 15 through 19 for any mention of the guy, here's a few highlights from those issues. We've got possibly the worst and most brazen ad yet. What can I say? Crude humour was just in. Then we've got a feature on Sega's website, circa 1995. It looks amazingly archaic. Then there's a long feature covering a new Judge Dredd game with some awesomely gory accompanying imagery. Then the team review the Street Fighter II anime movie and choose to showcase a fairly gratuitous scene to get all of their male readers interested. Though they describe the film as a manga, but this was before anime or manga had properly penetrated the West, I guess. In another issue, there's a small bit of blurb about a Knuckles-fronted anti-smoking campaign. I don't remember anything about this, but apparently Knuckles visited some schools to stop youngsters from smoking. And one game review stood out to me. A review for Power Rangers on the Sega CD, which the magazine describes as perhaps one of the worst games ever. I wanted to find out if that was true, so I booted it up, and yeah, it's awful. So now that we're all caught up, I can tell you that the Rankles saga ends with issue 20. The tips section of issue 20 has a very interesting little article. It turns out that two valiant warriors took up the Rankles challenge and submitted this picture. in an attempt to claim the £1 million bounty. It's not very clear, but this picture here is a recreation of the original photo, which was taken by Peter Withey and Daniel Leonard. The Sega Magazine folks slyly deny that this image is Rankles because he doesn't have Rankles' spiked feet. Peter and Daniel were kind enough to explain what's going on in this photo and supply some instructions on how you can see the Rankles imposter for yourself. So first, enable debug mode in Sonic the Hedgehog 3. This is a surprisingly tricky ask because you have to press a string of inputs in a very short window between the Sega logo fading and Sonic jumping towards the screen. If you do manage to pull off the code, you'll unlock both the level select screen and debug mode in one. If you want to catch a glimpse of fake Rankles, head to Marble Garden Zone Act 2 and zip to this lamppost, which is positioned just a little before the end of the act. For some reason, this position causes the sky to go completely nuts. Having seen this, if you return to the title screen by pressing Start and A, and then jump into any other zone, you'll notice some pretty unusual results. You'll start the majority of the zones underwater, like in Launch Base Zone Act 2 for example. This zone is completely flooded, and you'll notice these weird words made out of random objects floating just above your head. Above them is fake Rankles. It turns out that this Rankles fella is actually just Knuckles with an extremely distorted underwater colour palette. The only other zone worth a special mention here is Carnival Night Zone Act 2. This zone is also flooded when you visit it, and you can find another oddly coloured Knuckles here too as well. When you think about it, it's actually really impressive. This was all done pre-internet, and I have no idea how the guys found this glitch. I guess they might have just been messing around and stumbled upon it, but yeah, really cool. But there is one key detail to the story that you need to keep in mind. The Sega Magazine Challenge asked readers to find Rankles in Sonic & Knuckles, and Peter and Daniel's trick only works in Sonic the Hedgehog 3, so technically they didn't quite answer the challenge at all. So the Rankles legend lives on, and the challenge goes unanswered. And thus ends the saga of Rankles. He would never be mentioned again in the Sega Magazine, and in fact, the magazine itself would only last for 2 more issues anyway, before transforming into the Sega Saturn magazine. Despite being a throwaway gag character created by a largely forgotten magazine, the legend of Rankles has managed to live on in the hearts of fans. In a way, I'm not entirely sure why, because Rankles' original design is, to be frank, pretty horrendous. Maybe Rankles' popularity is down to the novelty of Rankles being one of the first of many Sonic hoaxes, and the first of many fan-created Sonic characters to exist. Before I close things out, I want to address Rankles' legacy. Rankles has the distinct honour of joining glitch buddies like Ashura as cult favourite original characters amongst some Sonic fans. You'll find him appearing in all manner of fan games to the extent that I think it would boggle Tom Guise's mind if he found out how beloved Rankles still is. More interestingly, one thing I find fascinating is the only other 2 otter characters associated with the Sonic franchise are green, or green-ish. So we have this sea otter from Sonic Adventure 2. It's one of the many collectible animals you can grab and use to power up your Chow. It's blisteringly green, and it can influence your Chow to develop a green tint as well. The only other Sonic Otter I could find is Captain Shellbreaker, a pirate captain who leads the Pirates of the Setting Dawn in the Archie comics series. Now, if we're being brutally honest, Shellbreaker is blue, but if we're coping, we could say he's a dark turquoisey colour. Whatever the case, the last time I checked, otters are actually brown, and Shellbreaker's fur is a lot more like Rankles is than a real otter's. So why do we keep seeing green otters? Well, that's Rankles for you, baby. The world yearns for Rankles, and so we keep making him. I'm not saying that Rankles actually influenced the design of these characters. I'm sure this is more a wild coincidence than anything else. but I do know that Sega has officially recognized Rankles pretty recently. Rankles was noticed by Senpai in a charming throwback April Fool's social media post from 2024 spoofing old magazine ads. Like many other meme characters, he's now officially been referenced by the folks behind Sonic the Hedgehog and now lives on in eternity. And I believe that is it for Rankles. As I've said though, the challenge still awaits a true champion. Can you be the one to find Rankles in Sonic & Knuckles? I mean, you don't believe those folks at Sega Magazine, right? You do believe he still exists, right? If anyone out there ever spots Rankles in their copy of Sonic & Knuckles, hit me up, and we'll try and get you your £1 million. And with that, I'm out. Thanks for watching, and see you next time. Hey folks, if you're familiar with my channel, you'll know that I have a real fondness for weird game glitches, and in particular, the characters that have spawned from palette glitches in Sonic games. Over the past couple of years, I've proudly brought you the story of Ashura and Wechnia, the two most famous glitch characters from the Sonic the Hedgehog series that have taken on a life of their own within the Sonic fan community. They both have fascinating origins and an air of mystery around them. But it feels like there's one more guy that I need to talk about. It's time to finish off this series. It's time for the third in the trilogy. It's time to talk about Bluckles. But that's not all. After that, I think it's time for a roundup. This isn't just Bluckles, this is Bluckles and friends. We're covering a whole bunch of glitches today. This isn't designed to be a comprehensive video. This is just a quick run through of some of the glitches that I think are the funniest, coolest, or ones that I enjoy performing. I'm sure I've missed plenty, so if you know of any that you think are interesting, or maybe ones that aren't that widely known, let me know in the comments. You never know, they might feature in a mythical 4th installment in the series. Now without further ado, let's go. So, let's start with the main event, Bluckles. The name is a bit of a giveaway, but Bluckles is the moniker given to the blue Knuckles glitch that's possible in Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles. My personal favourite game of all time, and one that thankfully I love revisiting endlessly. The fun thing about Bluckles is that he's technically playable in every level in Sonic 3 and Knuckles. That's pretty cool because Ashura, after all, was only playable in Emerald Hill Zone. Now, in order to pull off the glitch, you'll need to enable debug mode first. I'm not going to go into minuscule detail about how to do that. Instead, here is a super speedy guide on how to get set up. Now, with debug mode activated, the most common method you'll find for unlocking blue Knuckles is the following. This is what you'll probably see if you Google or YouTube the glitch. So, go to Hidden Palace Zone via the stage select screen, holding down A, B and C when you select your level. Make sure you're playing on a cartridge or save state with Chaos Emeralds, but not Super Emeralds unlocked. Or at least, that's what I've read online. In Hidden Palace, what you'll want to do is zoom over to the Emerald Chamber portion of the zone, jump on one of the emeralds, and enter the special stage. When you exit this stage, you'll be in a weird flooded version of Angel Island Zone. Slowly move down with the water, and you'll reach a point where the game hard resets. This is meant to unlock Bluckles, but I just couldn't get it working. I tried about half a dozen times, and my game either never reset or reset with no access to Bluckles. Now, I'm not playing on actual hardware, but still, I got no Bluckles. Thankfully, I found a lesser known method that worked 100% of the times that I tried it. Thank you to EthanSophia44 on YouTube, who uploaded this cheeky tutorial that I'm about to paraphrase. So in debug mode, go to Carnival Night Zone, Act 2. Keep moving right until you reach the end of the screen and go off screen. Now you'll want to nudge yourself down a little bit so your screen looks roughly like this, and then keep moving right until you loop through the zone a second time. You'll know that you're about to pop back on screen because the left hand side of the screen is going to go very weird. When you're back, float up a little bit, move right, and exit debug mode. You should land safely on a rather odd looking floor. Then reset the game and you should be good to go. The save select screen will look a little freaky here, but fear not, you've entered the Matrix and this is Bluckles' bat signal. Jump into a no save game and voila, you're playing as Bluckles. Bluckles plays like Knuckles. He can climb, glide and break through obstacles, but he follows Sonic's path through zones, so some levels are unfortunately impossible to complete, including Angel Island Zone Act 1. Still, you can use the level select screen to jump into any level you want with Bluckles, so effectively the whole game is your oyster. Bluckles is a real oddity. Notice that he also has Sonic's little nameplate in the bottom left of the screen, and when you complete a level, Tails gets a name drop. It's like he's an amalgamation of all three characters, a true glitch. The funny thing about Bluckles is that you don't really need to do all of that busy work to catch a glimpse of the guy. The signpost at the end of each zone in Sonic the Hedgehog 3 has a blue Knuckles on one side. Look, there he is, hiding in plain sight. The unfortunate thing is, there isn't much lore about Bluckles out there. That shrouds him in a certain degree of mystery, I agree, but my Googling skills really failed me in terms of finding the genesis of Bluckles. If you try to search Google for some of the earliest results for Blue Knuckles and ignore all the weird medical stuff, the only results will be a few YouTube videos from 2006. As weird as it is to view YouTube videos from 18 years ago, these videos make it clear that Blue Knuckles was well known in the Sonic community way before 2006. As for Bluckles, if you use Google to search for early results of that, they only start popping into existence in the 2010s after the release of the very old but very popular Blonic animations. I guess that's where the Bluckles nickname came from. So, there isn't one person or one community that I can name as the pioneer who discovered Blue Knuckles. Sorry guys. Although not as notorious nor as storied as Ashura or Wechnia, Bluckles is often bundled alongside those two legends in fans' hearts. You'll find plenty of fan art of the dude online and mods that add him into Sonic 3 Angel Island Revisited, Sonic Mania, Sonic Robo Blast 2, Sonic Adventure 2, and probably many, many, many more. Weirdly enough, there are at least 2 instances of a version of Blue Knuckles popping up in official Sega media. In the 2015 Sonic Boom episode, Eggman the Auteur, Eggman is making a movie about his life, and Knuckles plays the part of Sonic, complete with shoddy blue paint job. You know, I've never watched Sonic Boom before because, well, you know, the games were notoriously terrible. But I'm getting serious Donkey Kong Country vibes. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Sonic Boom did get a little bit meta and self-referential at times, but if I'm being honest, I doubt this is a reference to the Blue Knuckles glitch. Looping back to Ashura and Wechnia, we can visit the world of the IDW Sonic comic. IDW writer extraordinaire Ian Flynn has stated that his villainous trio of characters, Dr. Starline, Surge, and Kitsunami the Fanatic, are all inspired by glitch characters. I've discussed Surge and Starline in more detail before, but Kitsunami is a cybernetically enhanced Fanatic, which is one of these things. Designed by Dr. Starline to be a sidekick for Surge and a replacement for Tails. Despite his fairly laid-back looking design, he's a bad guy who's had his memory wiped, and he has the ability to manipulate water, equipped with a Hydro Pack, which allows for various water-based attacks and powers. Kitsunami is a well-designed and much-loved character. He's a fan favourite and deserves to be talked about in a lot more length at a later date. Now, Dr. Starline is definitely inspired by Wechnia, and there's no doubt that Surge is inspired by Ashura. But what about Kitsuname? Apparently, he's inspired by a Tails glitch in Sonic 3 that Ian Flynn personally remembers. That little snippet has led fans to assume that Kitsuname is inspired by the Bluckles glitch. Maybe, but maybe not. Others think that Kitsuname may instead be inspired by a different palette glitch, and with that in mind, I think it's time we move on from Bluckles and round out the glitch series. Let's finish our Pokédex, if you will, by quickly running through all of my other favourite palette glitches from the classic Sonic games, starting with, in my opinion, the more likely inspiration behind Kitsuname. Maybe this is what Ian Flynn remembers seeing. This is a little known glitch christened Cyborg Tails. Now, to do this, you'll need to play the vanilla version of Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and once again enable debug mode. In Sonic 3, this is how you do that. Phew, okay, so if you go to Launch Base Zone Act 2 as Tails, and then defeat the final boss, Tails will spring up in the air in a victorious end screen pose. Toggling in and out of debug mode quickly will make this weird, charming version of Tails briefly appear on the end screen. The character sprite here is meant to be loaded out of the victory scene, so popping the character back in gives them a rather heinous colour scheme. I can definitely see the argument that Tails' grey turquoise colours here do look a lot like Kitsuname. Of course, this glitch is also possible with Sonic, but where did the Cyborg nickname come from? Well, apparently the guy who first discovered the glitch, or at least first reported it way back in 2003, is a Redditor called Wibington, who chronicles on Reddit that they found on the Wayback Machine discussions dating to 2003 identifying and naming Cyborg Sonic. Unfortunately, no link was provided, but I've never known a Redditor to tell a lie, so I think this story sounds completely legit. The glitch has gained some notoriety in recent years for its passing resemblance to a certain other version of Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, jumping back to Sonic 3 and Knuckles, we can have a bit of fun with that game's end screen as well. How about a rare mythical sighting of Red Sonic? To see Red Sonic, you'll once again need to be in debug mode and playing a game cart that doesn't have any Super Emeralds unlocked. Or at least, that's what I've been advised by my Council of Glitch Gremlins. Head to Sky Sanctuary Act 2 as Sonic. This stage is usually a Knuckles only stage where you take on Super Mecha Sonic. Beat the final boss, and the end cutscene will boot up. You'll see our buddy Bluckles again, and after Bluckles has gone, you'll want to wait until the floating island is falling and then re-enter debug mode. If you make yourself a little platform with some item boxes and exit debug mode, you'll be treated to bright blue Sonic. And then if you open up one of the super boxes that you can spawn, Sonic will transform into Red Sonic. Unfortunately, he's not playable outside of this one little moment, but still pretty cool to see. Just to confirm, this guy isn't YouTuber Red Hot Sonic, because they're rocking different shoes, and this glitchy Sonic has a blue tongue. The funny thing about Red Sonic is that it's really cool that he actually exists. You see, Red Sonic was also the source of one of the more fun hoaxes in Sonic history. In 2012, a user posted scans of a Portuguese gaming magazine to the Sonic Stadium forums, claiming that the magazine contained some never-before-seen screenshots of a beta build in Sonic 3 in which Knuckles wasn't completely developed and was instead represented by a red Sonic. Throughout the summer, the original poster kept up with the lies. You see, at that point in time, no known beta build of Sonic 3 had leaked to the public, so the hoax was a rousing success because the magazine scans actually did look kinda legit. Eventually, Sonic Stadium users were put out of their misery and the hoaxer came clean. But the truth is, Red Sonic is real. Some end screen shenanigans can also be done with Knuckles, rendering him that same blistering, blinding blue, which reminds me of a very, very old fan game from probably over 20 years ago about Ice the Echidna. Next up, we can showcase a totally new game. Let's boot up Sonic CD. We're going to glitch the heck out of Amy Rose. Now, you know what I'm about to say. We need debug mode to do this. So in Sonic CD, here's how you sort out debug mode. Now, let's go see Blue Amy first. Boot up Palm Tree Panic Act 1. One important note here is do not enter debug mode yet. First you'll want to reach the end of the level and bump into regular old Amy Rose. Amy hugs Sonic and stays in a designated zone. Having met Amy, you can now spawn your own Amys. Trying to do this before meeting Amy makes your Amy object all weird and blocky, so show some restraint. Anyway, after you've spawned some ladies outside of Amy's usual patrol zone, head to the left. They'll all follow you and suddenly they'll turn blue. You see, there's a very specific point in the level where they turn blue, and they can turn pink again if you head to the right far enough. If you ask me, Blue Amy looks kinda cool. Actually suits her even in modern form. Now, Amy also appears in Stardust Speedway Act 3, held hostage at the end of the zone, and rescuable after the race against Metal Sonic. In Stardust Speedway, you can enter debug mode, zip right over to Amy, zip all the way to the left of the screen to the start of the level, and then return to Amy again. What do you reckon? Are we gonna see Blue Amy again? Not quite. She'll adopt a very weird, alien-looking, garish pink and green colour scheme. Not looking great, Amy. The sad news is that recent versions of all of these games often remove these kooky little glitches, so you'll need to return to the originals if you want to pull these glitches off. In case you were wondering if stuff like this is possible in Sonic Origins, no, sorry, I do get it. Technically these are glitches, and the new devs have cleaned up the games a little bit, but I do miss them. Now, if we fast forward a bit, we can visit Sonic Mania. Mania paid tribute to the classic Sonic titles in more ways than one, and in classic Sonic tradition, it also created ways for us to create new glitch characters too. Now, I promise, this is the final time I'll say this, but you'll need to be in debug mode to do some of the following bits. Thankfully, that's easier to enable in Sonic Mania. Once you've unlocked a few things, it becomes a menu option when you're choosing which game to play, thank goodness. So, in debug mode, if you place 2 super monitors and then 1 character swapper monitor, which cycles through all of the playable characters, and spin dash through the trio, you'll transform into a dark version of whatever character the character swapper monitor was cycling through at the time that you broke through it. You can do this with Knuckles, Tails, Mighty, and Ray, and they all look pretty cool, like a Shadow the Hedgehog version of those particular characters. A lot of tutorials for this on YouTube suggest that you need to place 1 of every monitor and smash through them all, but I found that the 3 monitor method worked perfectly fine. Apparently, following this method can also sometimes transform you into a hot pink Tails, if the character swapper monitor lands on Tails when you're trying to do it. I tried to replicate this literally dozens of times, but simply couldn't get it working, unfortunately. There is a lot of pink Tails footage out there, so I can share what he looks like from other YouTubers, but trying the 3 monitor method or the every monitor method just didn't work for me. Ultimately, I feel like the old 2D games were the most fun to glitch. The 3D games are notoriously glitchy, though still a lot of fun in my opinion, and a lot of those glitches are more centered around little gameplay quirks rather than palette or texture issues. I do have a couple of favourite little texture glitches that you can pull off in Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2 though, that I'll really quickly run through. First, I remember seeing this tutorial by Video Game Clip Collect explaining how to create a weird vaporwave version of Sonic Adventure, but doing this runs the risk of permanently damaging your Dreamcast, so yeah. Basically, if you boot up a level, take out the game disc and put in another one, making sure you somehow trick the disc lid sensor into thinking that the Dreamcast is still closed, and then unpause, you can play through the level, but it looks all rainbowy. I guess the stage itself is loaded into memory, but the textures are loaded on the fly, hence you get a really out-of-this-world look. Then there is perhaps the most famous 3D Sonic texture issue. This one, as showcased in the Some Call Me Johnny review of Sonic Adventure. Apparently completing Sonic Adventure in one sitting on the Dreamcast without a memory card inserted completely freaks Big's textures out towards the end of the game. I have heard others dispute the method for creating this texture glitch, so if you know the definitive answer for how to do this one, please let me know. As for Sonic Adventure 2, well, have you ever heard of the action replay? The short explanation of the action replay is that it's a disc containing hundreds or thousands of preloaded cheat codes, along with a card that you put in your memory card slot. It's kind of like a disc version of the Game Genie in a sense, and you can use it with a whole bunch of GameCube games, including Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, to create some very weird looking texture issues. You can apply Amy's textures to Sonic, Chaos and Tikal's textures to Knuckles, and all manner of other things. If I'm being honest, I don't find the texture glitches as charming as the palette glitches, but this particular shadow is damn cool. Ultimately, if you do some googling, you'll find that there are all manner of weird texture glitches possible in Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2. But the thing is, some of these glitches do occur because of physical damage, either to a console, or a game cartridge, or a game disc. And as a result, they aren't really easily reproducible, or they only happen once in a blue moon. I think for a lot of these images, that's what's happened here. And maybe that's why they don't fascinate me as much. But with all of that said, I think I'm done. I reiterate that if I've missed any, or there's one that you think you've just discovered, let me know in the comments. I just have a fondness for messing about with the games that I love, and playing them in a different way is just utterly enthralling to me. And the passion that the community has in terms of bringing what are essentially palette glitches to life with their own lore, mythos and personality is just brilliant. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Sonic Adventure is a game I've got a real soft spot for, and one thing I've always loved about the game is the non-playable characters. If you take the time to actually talk to some of them throughout the game, you'll find they have some pretty interesting stories of their own that progress as you make progress through the main story mode. They're really fun to keep up with and keep track of, and they make the hub world, particularly Station Square, feel really alive. For example, there's a guy who runs an antique store that has a couple of those old metal robot toys. I love those. He's quite a portly gentleman, with a receding hairline and a prominent mustache. A good-looking chap. There's another NPC who looks just like him actually, who stands just around the corner. He guards a doorway and he's always moaning. Kinda weird that they look exactly the same. Obviously it's due to developer constraints, but I wonder if they're twins or something like that. One NPC might surprise people more than others. Stood frozen outside of the burger shop is an NPC that looks exactly like the antique guy and the doorway guy, with an old-fashioned brown suit and mustache. Try to talk to him, and you'll actually pick him up instead. Turns out this isn't an NPC at all, but a statue stood outside the burger restaurant. A kind of restaurant mascot, like Ronald McDonald, Colonel Sanders, or Jollibee if you're Filipino. Kinda cute, right? It adds a little bit of character to Station Square if you ask me. Great, so there's a statue of a guy outside the burger shop, so what? There is, it turns out, a surprising amount of things to say about this statue, who I'll hereby dub Burger Guy. In Station Square, there's also a little girl that wanders around who's positively obsessed with the statue. No matter what happens to be going on in the main story, she's always ready to share some burger shop lore with the player. Doesn't matter if Station Square's being attacked by Chaos or Dr. Eggman or whatever, she's got Burger Guy on the mind. If you choose to talk to her most of the time, she'll open up by claiming or feigning surprise that the person standing outside the burger shop is just a statue. She also says that she hears the statue goes on trips, which is a little spooky. She says she thinks it looks real, which is fair considering it looks exactly like two NPCs. She tells us he's a major player in the burger business, so he's kind of a Colonel Sanders type figure. She tells us the statue guy came up with the burger's secret recipe. She rightfully says it'd scare the stuffing out of her at night, which is a fair assessment. Some of those fast food statues can be a bit freaky. There's two bits of dialogue of special importance though. If you talk to her at the end of the game in Supersonic's portion, she'll start reciting a TV commercial associated with the burger chain to Sonic. She really is obsessed. If you speak to her as Big the Cat, she warns you, don't even think of throwing it into the river. A rather ominous warning. From all of this information from this rather unusual girl, it's obvious that the statue is based on Colonel Sanders of KFC fame, which is kind of funny because a mock KFC restaurant also appeared in old Sega game Dynamite Ducks. It seems Sega have a bit of a KFC obsession. The 16 secret spices is a pretty obvious reference to the supposed 11 secret herbs and spices that goes into the Colonel's secret recipe. But the girl's warning not to throw the statue into the river actually has quite an extensive backstory, and it's a reference to a unique little bit of modern Japanese folklore known as the Curse of the Colonel. The curse, if you've not heard it before, has a fascinating backstory. Here goes. On October 16th, 1985, the Hanshin Tigers, a Kansai-based Japanese baseball team, capped off a magical season with a victory over the Yakult Swallows in Tokyo, securing them first place in the Central League for the first time in 21 years. A group of ecstatic and presumably drunken fans in central Osaka celebrated by the Dotonbori Canal, singing a song that celebrated the contribution of each player. For some bizarre reason, fans who resembled each player would dive into the canal during the song. Perhaps the star Tigers player at the time was an American player called Randy Bass. The all-Japanese crowd had a problem. None of them looked like Randy Bass. In lieu of a doppelganger fan to jump into the canal on his behalf, the crowd raided a local KFC restaurant, stole the Colonel Sanders statue from outside, and threw it into the river as a representation of Bass. The Tigers would actually go on to win the Japan Series 2 weeks after the Sanders incident on November 2nd, so the supposed curse didn't kick in immediately, but subsequent years would see the Tigers enter something of a tailspin. They'd spend the next 18 years near the bottom of the Central League standings, while many star players would suffer injuries, retire, or leave the team before the 80s were over. Apparently, the story of the Colonel's curse is widely believed to have been started by late-night TV show Night Scoop. The show was based around the idea that viewers would send in requests for mysteries that they wanted to see the show solve. The show's first request was to recover the drowned Colonel Sanders statue from the canal. Apparently, they tried and failed multiple times to rescue the statue from the depths of the canal in 1988. The hosts subsequently declared, "Until the Colonel is rescued and cleansed of the sludge, Hanshin have no hope of winning the championship." 20 years later, in 2009, during annual cleaning of the canal, the Sanders statue was found and rescued. The statue enjoyed a ceremonial cleansing at a shrine and has spent the last decade in a variety of locations, first being stationed outside a restaurant near Koshien Stadium, then at KFC's Tokyo HQ, and recently in KFC's Osaka offices. For what it's worth, the curse appears to still be in effect. The Tigers won the Central League pennant again in 2003, but have yet to win another Japan Series championship, despite the restoration of the statue. Of course, Sonic Adventure was originally released in 1998 in Japan, in the midst of the Tiger's abysmal streak, so the curse of the Colonel was very much in effect at that point in time. If you ask me, Sonic's crew should follow the little girl's advice and not throw Burger Guy into any bodies of water. This is just one of the many little subtle things that make their way into Sonic games that add a lot of flavour to the world. Burger Guy isn't just fascinating because of this curse business, he's also a beacon for glitches too. He's genuinely so much fun to play around with. Try throwing him around and see what happens. You might put Michael Jordan to shame. Check this one out. Try your best to ignore the little girl's wishes and fling him into the sea and... Wait a minute, where's he gone? Oh, there he is, and he's back? No idea what happened there. I even threw him into the air quite far away from the shore and he magically appeared there still. It actually took me a while to notice this one. Burger Guy has a tendency to disappear into the void because it's pretty easy to push him through walls and invisible boundaries and make him clip out of bounds. Try to plop him down in his own restaurant and he'll disappear out of existence and end up right back outside the restaurant. Try to put him down near the wrong wall and he'll slide into another dimension. Burger Guy can also, rather handily, be used to access levels that you're not supposed to be able to reach. I was able to prop him up outside the entrance to Twinkle Park, forcing him to push me through the wall. It didn't do me much good. I enjoyed messing around with the statue and seeing where I could get it, but I personally couldn't get anywhere useful with it. But the folks over at the D-Pad Gamer have a glitch video that shows just how exploitable the statue really is. They affectionately name him Mr. Bobsworth. I recommend you check out their video. A couple of the more well-known statue exploits involve Knuckles accessing Emerald Coast, and Sonic getting the Lightspeed Shoes upgrade early by using the statue to clip into the manhole cover that's blocked by a car. There's one glitch I noticed when playing on my GameCube version of Sonic Adventure DX. If you head to the Burger Guy early on in the game by clipping through the police barricade that usually blocks this area off, go and grab Burger Guy, walk him off screen and then back on, and head to the burger shop and voila! You've now got yourself two. I love the idea that the staff at the restaurant have a second statue handy just in case the first one goes missing. What you might not know is that Sonic Adventure was originally released in Japan first in 1998. By the time the game arrived in North America and elsewhere, some issues had been patched and changes had been made. This second release has subsequently been dubbed Sonic Adventure International. In the Japanese release, it's possible to jump on Burger Man, which is pretty fun and increases his glitchy potential. Here's another difference that Burger Man has in the Japanese version. In later releases, when a character places Burger Guy down, they place the statue in front of them while standing in place, which often makes Burger Guy clip through elements in the stage. In the Sonic Adventure Japanese incarnation, the opposite is true. When Burger Guy is placed, he stays in place and characters are pushed backwards. These two elements, Burger Guy pushing characters back and being climbable, makes it even easier for players to clip through a massive amount of environments and enter levels that they're not supposed to. When playing around on the Japanese Dreamcast game, I also noticed that cars can drive right through Burger Guy's ghostly visage. All of this clipping and glitching and stuff like that is possible in later releases, of course, but I just think it's funny that some attempts were made to fix Burger Guy early on, but he's still remained a lightning rod for glitchy behaviour in every other version of the game too. Now, returning to Sonic Adventure DX, the remixed version of Sonic Adventure that first released in 2003. DX has a mission mode where the player is tasked with finding missions scattered throughout the playfields and zones and has to complete as many as possible. The Burger Guy crops up in 4 different missions. Sonic's very first mission brief reads, "Bring the man who is standing in front of the hamburger shop," which is fairly straightforward. All you have to do is go to the burger shop, grab Burger Guy, bring him to the center of Station Square, and there you go. Sonic has another mission that can be found in the Egg Carrier. It reads, "Fighter aircraft are flying everywhere. Somebody, get me out of here." If you enter Skydeck Zone, you'll see Burger Guy at the start of Act 2. and you have to safely guide him through an area filled with projectiles and gale force winds. It's actually a huge pain in the ass and a fairly difficult mission to complete. It also begs a lot of questions. Who on earth put this guy up here? And how is this non-sentient statue asking for help? It's all very bizarre. I've always chalked it up to just being a Dr. Eggman prank. E102 Gamma has a mission involving Burger Guy too. The brief reads, "Lonely Metal Sonic needs a friend. Look carefully." All you have to do is pop the statue, which is downstairs, next to the Metal Sonic that hangs out in a stasis tube. Curious, but what a dream team, Metal Sonic and Burger Guy. The final Burger Guy mission is undertaken by Amy. The mission reads, "He's going to drown. Help the man in the water." It's self-explanatory. All you have to do is retrieve him from the pond in the Mystic Ruins area. But I like how this mission is another callback to the Curse of the Colonel again. I can imagine the little girl wrote this mission description and got mixed up as to whether this statue is just a statue or an actual guy drowning. That's a lot of info, but ultimately that's all there is to say about Burger Guy officially. He's a throwaway character, if he's even a character at all, and hasn't appeared outside of Sonic Adventure. As is often the case though, Burger Guy's popularity has ascended in recent years thanks to the Sonic fanbase. If you want even more ways to play with Burger Guy, here's a few. In 2020, Burger Guy got added to Gary's mod because why not, I guess. If you want to fight an army of Burger Guys armed with cattle prods, well, now you can. If you're more of a Sonic guy, then at the tail end of last year, the excellent and creative Chow Mix, who you should also check out if you haven't already, unleashed on the world a mod that added Burger Guy to Sonic Adventure 2, complete with Naruto Run and a cute little icon for Burger Guy. The mod, aptly named Burger Man Adventure, was a big enough deal to get reported on by a few gaming news outlets. Thanks for upping the ante and sharing Burger Guy with the world. If you've ever wanted to see Burger Guy and Shadow the Hedgehog exchange heated words, this mod is for you. At around the same time, one of the internet's foremost experts on Sonic Adventure, that's Speeps, released a meme maker mod for Sonic Adventure, a pretty hulking mod that adds a lot of different stuff, including the ability to play as NPCs, which of course includes Burger Guy. So if you really want to, that's both Sonic Adventure games that you can complete as Burger Guy. Speeps deserves a special thanks for also bringing the menace of the Burger Guy to the attention of the Sonic the Hedgehog Twitter accounts as well. Ultimately, what's surprising to me is the lack of creepypasta. I mean, people love to make stuff about Tails Doll and other characters, but who could be creepier than this weird, supernatural statue with the power to potentially curse people? He seems primed for some lo-fi horror game or Five Nights at Freddy's clone. Anyone want to take up the baton and make that? Before we finish, we may as well cover a few other bits about the burger restaurant. There's a fella who works there and a girl who has a crush on him. You can follow their side story as the main story progresses. The girl will stand around awkwardly outside or inside the restaurant, acting all shy and scared to talk to him, much to the frustration of the fella who works there. Eventually, she ends up getting a job and working at the burger joint too. The guy's happy about this, of course, but kinda wishes you'd given him a heads up about her feelings towards him. The diner also has a weird poster on the wall that's always fascinated me. If you look closely, it resembles a character of sorts. For a long time, fans have assumed that this is a prototype for Rouge the Bat. On the other hand, for the past few years, I've claimed that it's actually the best Sonic original character of all time, Plump Dankenstein McFlurnton the Cat Esquire, because the resemblance is uncanny. It turns out though that this is a scrapped design for a spider character, as confirmed on Twitter by former Sega designer Satoshi Okano. Here's a rather interesting piece of fan art that imagines what the spider character might have looked like. And that is just about everything there is to say about Burger Guy. Before we finish off, I just wanted to share a couple of pieces of fan art of Burger Guy that I really love. Thanks for tuning in for some obscure Sonic lore. As always, the floor is open. If you have a character you'd love me to talk about in the future, feel free to let me know. I'm planning a slightly different project in the future too, where I reminisce about some of my favourite Sonic fan games. If you've got a recommendation or a favourite fan game, please let me know that too. Thanks for watching, and hopefully, I'll see you next time. Hey folks, welcome to this video profiling a truly fascinating Sonic the Hedgehog character. Today we'll be exploring the history of Honey the Cat, a character inspired by another Sega franchise, who was scrapped and went undiscovered for nearly a whole decade until being uncovered by curious fans and canonized by Sega. We'll be taking a look at Honey's inspiration, the story of her discovery, and her characterization after she was re-welcomed into the Sonic family. Honey is an interesting character to talk about because she's attained a kind of cult popularity amongst fans, and for good reason. She looks iconic. Before I begin, if you have a Sonic character you'd like me to cover in a future video, please let me know in the comments. I've got plenty of ideas, but I always love to hear your thoughts too. And if you enjoy this video, there'll be a link to a playlist to my other Sonic profile videos at the end. I've talked about Being the Dynamite, Ashura the Hedgehog, and more, so plenty to sink your teeth into. Now, without further ado, let's get going. Our story starts in 1993 with the release of the revolutionary Virtua Fighter in arcades. Created by Sega AM2, Virtua Fighter is widely regarded as the first 3D fighting game ever released. In Japan, Virtua Fighter was a phenomenally massive success. It's one of the highest grossing arcade games of all time. Also, the game's Sega Saturn port was the best-selling Saturn game at the console's release. And the game was received exceedingly well by the Japanese gaming press. The reception of the game was decidedly more lukewarm in the West. Virtua Fighter was widely praised for its revolutionary graphics, but was hardly as culturally significant a game as it was in Japan. Virtua Fighter leads us on to Fighting Vipers. Fighting Vipers is a 3D fighting game also developed by Sega AM2, and originally released in arcades in 1995, and then later on the Sega Saturn. Fighting Vipers was built using the same engine as Virtua Fighter, but with a couple of key differences. It featured an armor mechanic, where the opponent's armor could be chipped away at and even broken off. The fighting arenas were all enclosed, and the game was targeted towards a more Western audience, with the game being set in America and the crew and cast of characters not being based on martial arts stereotypes. Amongst these characters was Honey, who ended up being renamed Candy in the West for unknown reasons. Dressed in red leather armor with angel wings on the back, Honey became the flagship character for Fighting Vipers. Honey is actually a 16-year-old fashion student who designed her own costume and entered into the Fighting Vipers tournament solely to promote her own fashion range. Honey has a weird cat theme going on too. Her fighting stance is a little cat-like, and a lot of her moves have cat in the name too. One of the ironic things about Fighting Vipers is that it was considerably more successful in Japan than in the US, despite being designed with Western audiences in mind. The American release was also heavily censored. Honey's ending, which was a little bit racy, was toned down. Also, it's possible to chip away Honey's armor to reveal a bra and G-string as well in the Japanese release, another feature removed in the US. In short, Honey was a little bit too sexualized for American audiences. Whatever the case, Honey became a very popular character over in Japan, and became something of a cosplay icon. And while we're on the topic of censorship, another thing that was removed when Fighting Vipers travelled westwards was the copious amount of Pepsi signs and references scattered throughout the game. This was the result of a licensing deal reached with Pepsi that didn't extend to international markets. Incidentally, the fabled Pepsi Man, the weird superhero mascot dreamed up by Pepsi of Japan, is actually playable in the game. If you suffer a perfect loss to the arcade mode's first opponent, Pepsi Man will appear to challenge you. Beat him and he becomes playable. Pepsi Man is only in the Japanese arcade release, but was added to the American Sega Saturn release at least. What does this have to do with Sonic, I hear you say? Well, Fighting Vipers features a little blink and you'll miss it moment in the game's introductory sequence, where one of the characters, a big biker called Sandman, picks up a motorcycle helmet. Next to the helmet is a stuffed toy of a cat, dressed in the same outfit as Honey, alongside a model of the Lunar Fox, a rocket built by Tails that features in Sonic the Fighters. Note the colours of the little Honey plush. Honey is purple with blonde hair and a blue outfit, which matches the secondary colours of the human Honey character in the game. One of Fighting Viper's developers, Masahiro Sugiyama, was also responsible for inserting a primitive and barely playable version of Sonic and Tails into the game too. Created during his spare time, the Sonic and Tails models inspired Sega to go full steam ahead, creating a Sonic-based fighting game which would eventually become Sonic the Fighters, or Sonic Championship, which would release in arcades in 1996. Sonic the Fighters was originally an arcade exclusive, meaning it was a pretty obscure game back in the 90s that few had the opportunity to play. It was mildly popular in Japan, and was praised for its cartoony style by American publications who had the chance to play it. The game had a colourful and vibrant cast of characters, both old and new. Sonic, Knuckles, Tails, Amy, Knack the Weasel, Espio, Bean and Bark all starred as Chaos Emerald Guardians in the game, fighting to determine who was the worthiest fighter to go and take on Dr. Eggman. Yes, if you kept count, there are 8 Guardians in the game, and thus 8 Chaos Emeralds in the game too. At face value, there's seemingly no sign of Honey the Cat in the arcade version of the game. A Sega Saturn port of Sonic the Fighters was planned, and certain individuals have claimed an early Saturn port was showcased in a private screening at E3 1996, but the Saturn port never materialized. According to Sonic Team game planner Yojiro Ogawa, Sega felt it was difficult to reproduce the arcade quality of the game on Saturn hardware, thus the port never saw the light of day. It wasn't until 2005 that Sonic the Fighters would enjoy a home console release, being one of the games packaged into Sonic Gems collection for the GameCube and PlayStation 2. Finally, this obscure gem of a game was widely playable for Sonic fans. It was after this release that the folks over at the now defunct website Sonic Cult discovered an extra, hidden character in the code for Sonic the Fighters. This Sonic Gems collection only contained a hint of said character because their model was completely removed. Even via hacking, it wasn't possible to play as this newly discovered character without risk of crashing the game completely, unless the character was loaded with a different character's model. After this discovery, hackers had to return to the original source material and found the same secret character with model and all hidden away in the arcade version's code. And thus, in about 2006, Honey the Cat was unearthed and playable for the first time, thanks entirely to fan enthusiasm and the folks over at Sonic Cult. This original unearthed iteration of Honey the Cat was a little bit buggy though, to say the least. For starters, when Honey was first found and documented, she was lacking her long hair and tail, an issue related to arcade emulators at the time that was later resolved. Honey also suffered from a semi-permanent massive eye glitch. The game's files reveal a sizable array of different eyes for Honey, but the coding for Honey's eyes isn't in place to handle all of the different eyeball transitions, meaning one of Honey's eyes is permanently facing the game camera, while the other is facing the exact opposite direction, which looks a bit unnerving. Honey also doesn't have a completely original moveset, with a lot of her moves being nicked from other characters. It looks like Honey was based primarily off Amy. Their stances are similar, and Honey's body actually transforms into Amy's when she's crushed by Amy's Pico Pico hammer attack. Finally, Honey doesn't have a versus screen portrait either. It seems to default to Dr. Eggman on the versus screen. Honey's name also doesn't appear, instead you'll see a collection of question marks, but this actually seems kind of intentional. Like Honey was originally going to be a secret character that challenged the player at some point in time. Now, when you're playing through arcade mode in Sonic the Fighters, you can face off against the character that you actually chose. In this scenario, Dr. Eggman will create a grayscale clone of yourself that you have to fight. What's really interesting is that Honey's clone isn't grayscale, but instead, Her colour scheme matches the Honey the Cat plush that we saw in the Fighting Vipers intro, with the blonde hair and blue armour. Exactly when in development Honey was dropped and for what reason is unknown. She's evidently unfinished, but an interview with Hiroshi Kataoka, former head of Sega AM2 from 2006, offers a little bit of insight. Kataoka suggests that Honey's character designer may have slipped the character in there. It sounds like Honey the Cat was originally going to be a little secret way of acknowledging that Fighting Vipers was the predecessor to Sonic the Fighters. What's really interesting about this interview is that Hiroshi doesn't seem that familiar with the Honey the Cat character at all. It really makes me wonder if Sega would have acknowledged Honey the Cat on their own if it wasn't for fans digging around and finding this discovery. To be honest, I doubt it. In 2012, an HD re-release of Sonic the Fighters hit the PlayStation Network and Xbox Live Arcade, and this version of the game contains a completely finished and fixed version of Honey the Cat. And all you have to do to unlock Honey is hover over Amy Rose and select Amy with the Start button instead of the A button. Simple. There is still some level of mystique surrounding Honey in this version of the game still. Her name is still replaced with question marks, and her versus screen art is a silhouette, so she's still a little bit mysterious. It's not that common to see completely scrapped characters be lifted out of the garbage heap and actually grace a game, so props to Sega for this. After 2012, Honey also made some cameo appearances in the Archie comic books. In May 2012, Honey made her first Archie appearance on the cover of Archie Sonic Universe issue 40. After fan demand to make her a more permanent character, Honey was given a bit of a redesign and started appearing semi-frequently, starting in 2015. What I like about Honey in the Archie comics is that the writers stayed true to her in-game origins. Just like Honey from Fighting Vipers, the Archie version of Honey is a fashion mogul and CEO of Honey Clothing. In what is a bit of an echo of Sonic the Fighters, Honey's first major appearance was as a competitor in the Chaos Emerald Championship, a fighting tournament hosted by Breezy the Hedgehog. Just like Honey in Fighting Vipers, Honey the Cat's primary motivation for entering the tournament was to promote her fashion line. She promised to hand over the tournament prize, a Chaos Emerald, to the Freedom Fighters if she won in exchange for them modelling her clothing. It turns out that Amy Rose is actually an avid fan of Honey's, and Amy's outfit is a piece from Honey's old Dreamcaster line. Like I said, it's a pretty nice nod to Honey's origin that Honey's first Archie story was a Sonic the Fighters-esque scenario. Honey is also a pretty competent martial artist. She's matched up with Tails in round 1 of the Chaos Emerald Championship and ends up victorious, though does use underhanded tactics, eliminating Tails after distracting him. All is fair in love and war, says Honey. It seems she has a bit of a devious streak. Honey found herself matched up against Sonic in the next round. She put up a good effort but ended up losing. The tournament is ultimately disrupted by robotic intruders arriving to try to steal the Chaos Emerald. They're thwarted, but the storyline concludes with Honey actually striking a deal with tournament organizer Breezy to design costumes for her robotic staff. Honey confronts Breezy, pointing out how easy it was for Eggman's robots to breach the tournament's security, and hinting that Breezy might have acted in cahoots with Eggman. Breezy shrugs off the accusation by pointing out how lucrative the tournament was, and highlighting Honey's own shrewd, underhanded behaviour during her matchup with Tails. This gives Honey some food for thought. I think she realised she's only a few steps away from being a bit of a baddie herself. Honey's other appearances in the comic largely revolved around her trying to snag more clients, like trying to strike a deal to become the royal designer for Princess Sally. I believe that Honey has yet to appear in the newer IDW comic book series, which is a shame. In fact, Honey has yet to reappear in a Sonic game since 2012 as well. I think it's high time Honey not only reappeared, but became a permanent staple of the Sonic series. She has such a unique look, and the fanbase obviously loves her, so what could go wrong? The thing is, I did tell a bit of a porcupine in this video's introduction. Sonic the Fighters isn't even canon in the Sonic the Hedgehog universe, so technically, neither is Honey. Seeing Ray and Mighty return in Sonic Mania Plus has given me hope that no long-forgotten character can ever be entirely written off, so here's to hoping. And that just about wraps up the story of Honey the Cat, the character that was very nearly forgotten to the sands of time. If you enjoyed this video, I've got a playlist of more character profiles of people like Bean the Dynamite, Supersonic and more. The playlist is always growing and I'm open to suggestions for future videos if you have a favourite character you'd like me to cover. Let me know in the comments if you do. Thanks for watching and hopefully I'll see you next time. Hey folks, the past couple of months I've been profiling characters from the Sonic the Hedgehog series. I've kind of laser focused in on Team Hooligan recently, and profiled Bean the Dynamite, Fang the Sniper, and Bark the Polar Bear, along with Honey the Cat, who appeared alongside them in the 2012 re-release of Sonic the Fighters. In this video I want to revisit all 4 characters for the final time, and offer a little bit of extra information about all 4, and crucially, I want to correct a few fatal mistakes I originally made. Something that particularly plagued my Honey the Cat video, unfortunately. Some YouTube commenters were kind enough to offer me an absolute wealth of information and resources about Team Hooligan and Honey, so this particular bonus video is absolutely full to bursting with obscure lore and knowledge. I absolutely guarantee there'll be at least a few things in here you've never seen or heard before. I want to extend a massive thank you to Biggest Sonic Fan, the internet's foremost Sonic the Fighters scholar, for taking the time to talk me through Honey the Cat's discovery. I also want to thank Sherlock Prower, who sent me some really awesome pictures and scans that I'm excited to share with you shortly. And finally ZM256 for continuing to help me research Team Hooligan. And now, without further ado, let's run through each character one by one, starting with the big boy himself. Let's start by talking about Bark the Polar Bear. I've been able to grab 1 or 2 really cool and rarely seen things since releasing my Bark video a few weeks back. These were all sent over by Fighting Vipers fan Sherlock Prower. Now for starters, Sherlock sent me some higher quality shots of the unofficial Fighters Megamix guidebook comic strips featuring Bark and Bean, so that's cool to see. Next, remember that Fighters Megamix manga book I mentioned? Sherlock has it, and very kindly sent me the pages that involve Bark and Bean. The manga is actually an anthology of short stories, and Bark and Bean only make fleeting appearances in the volume. In one particular story, Janet Marshall, originally from the Virtua Cop series, catches wind that some illegal gambling would be held during a martial arts tournament. After investigating, she tracks down the location of the gamblers and performs a bust, only to find Bark, Bean, Panda-chan and Deku, the Mexican green bean, gambling with children's toy money and Doraemon game pieces. Nevertheless, Janet puts an end to their antics. I love Bean's vacant stare in this comic. Bark also cameos at the end of another story in which Akira from Virtua Fighter tries to recruit people for martial arts training. Bark suddenly appears at the end of the story to smash Akira into the sky. Sherlock was also kind enough to let me know about another manga that I had no idea existed. It's called Sega Game Gag. Apparently it's just one of many volumes collecting together mostly single-page gag comics from the Japanese video game magazine Gamist. This volume, with Honey from Fighting Vipers on the cover, was originally published on November 10th, 1997. It's the 126th volume of the Gamist comics line. This comic has panels featuring the whole Fighters Megamix cast, so there's more than just Team Hooligan inside. There's comics featuring SBO, Knuckles, Sonic, Amy and Tails. I don't read Japanese, so I'm not sure what's going on in all of them, but they're pretty cool to look at. Here's a few Team Hooligan strips. Here's one of Fang getting squished by Amy's Pico Pico hammer attack. Here's another, with Fang firing off his cork gun, and, I think, winning at a carnival game or something. Here's a strip of Bean and Espio fighting. And here's the best comic of them all, where Sonic and Co. find out Bean and Bark are to star in Fighters Megamix along with a bunch of human characters. They imagine them as humans, and this is the result.
Oh no, he's hot!
I also love the fact that Bean and Bark appear in their Fighters Megamix alternate costumes on the rear of this volume. There's Bark in his Santa outfit with a Christmas ham, and up here is Blue Bean, based off Bin from Dynamite Ducks, aka Bean's father. Now, of course, all of these materials are unofficial, although GameGag does have copyright Sega on the front. But I think it's really interesting to see that Bean and Bark have appeared in quite a few different things. Next up, let's talk about Fang the Sniper. A lot of my research into Fang came from checking out the Twitter account of his original designer, Shinichi Higashi, who goes by the online handle Toma on Twitter. Higashi has been really open about sharing Fang-related secrets in the past, and I happen to miss quite a few interesting nuggets of his. Here's a few notable things I've seen since releasing the Fang video, most of which were pointed out to me by ZM256. Thanks again. First, Higashi is actually a toy maker, and he's made some really cool figures of Sega characters like Knuckles in the past. Higashi even made a model of Fang at one point too. I'd love to get my hands on that figure because Team Hooligan merch is few and far between. Higashi has also made a range of wolf-like creatures, also called Fang, that kind of look like Fang if he turned into a werewolf or something. There's also more concept art of Fang to be found on Higashi's Twitter that I didn't originally show. Here's a really cool piece that shows Fang coloured grey rather than purple, looking kind of shiny and angular. Here's another piece, showing what Fang's hair looks like under his hat, in case you were ever wondering. An eagle-eyed Tumblr user noticed that Fang seems to have the same style of hair under his hat in the IDW comic books too. Man, the IDW comics really are awesome, aren't they? Someone also noticed that this sketch of Fang has a little character scrawled on the bottom of it. I personally asked Higashi who that little character is. It's a very famous Japanese character called Uncle Rerere from the genius Bakabon. Higashi said Fang was originally going to move around like Rerere, which he kind of does in Sonic the Fighters. One final Fang fact for you. One of the many inconsistencies in Sonic the Fighters is that Fang has white gloves in his character selection screen icon. What an unbelievable mistake. In terms of Team Hooligan, I left Bean for last because there's not quite as much to say about him that hasn't already been said, but here's some corrections and some cool things worth sharing. First, I made a huge mistake by saying that Sonic and Tails were added to Fighting Vipers by an anonymous developer. That was horrendously wrong. Masahiro Sugiyama added Sonic and Tails to Fighting Vipers and thus was responsible for Sonic the Fighters. Thank you, sir. Also worth noting is that Bin, Bean's father and predecessor from Dynamite Ducks, was the alias of long-serving Sega AM2 coder Satoshi Mifune, who'd been with the team since Space Harrier and was the main coder of Dynamite Ducks and the planner/programmer of the Virtua Striker series, which explains why Bean appeared in Virtua Striker 2 and not Sonic. Here's a detail I didn't mention about Bean. Look closely in the background of his stage in Sonic the Fighters and you'll see a sign for a company. You'll notice that he spelled construction wrong on his sign. I really like the idea that Bean runs his own real estate company, but I don't know how he resists the urge to bomb his own houses. The really weird thing about this though is that the phone number on the sign is an actual real estate agent's phone number, so there you go. It's also come to my attention that Bean's species is discussed and specified in more places than I originally mentioned. So here's a really quick retally of the points in favour of him being a duck versus woodpecker. In terms of being a duck, his father, Bin, is a duck in Dynamite Ducks, and that's established in the Master System manual for the game. In Virtua Striker 2 he quacks, and the Virtua Striker 2 website also states he's a duck. In the Archie comic books, Bean is definitely a duck. The director behind Sonic the Fighters, Hiroshi Kataoka, said in an interview that he's a dynamite duck, and the Sonic Jam Guide also says he's a duck. That's 5 points on the duck side. In terms of being a woodpecker, the Fighters Megamix guidebook says he's a woodpecker, and his moveset has woodpecker-like moves. Unfortunately, I originally stated Bean as a woodpecker in the IDW comic series, but that's never stated. So that's only 2 points in favour of him being a woodpecker. It seems as if more sources refer to him as a duck, but plenty of commenters have suggested that Bean might be a hybrid, similar to Fang, a kind of half duck, half woodpecker. I kinda like that theory. A few people have said simply that he's a dynamite. If we overthink things, that might be an original species, so I'm tempted to say that's what he is. Now the big Sonic Encyclopedia is due out very, very soon, and I'm sure that's going to be treated as the definitive answer. So if you're coming from the future and you've read the Sonic Encyclopedia, please let me know what it says so we can put this debate to rest. Finally, let's move on to Honey the cat. Not part of Team Hooligan, granted, but there's a lot to say about Honey. Because, for the most part, a lot of sources online, be they wikis or otherwise, don't really have the full picture or the full story of Honey's background, discovery, and characteristics. Biggest Sonic fan, one of the internet's foremost Sonic the Fighters experts, kindly talked me through a timeline of Honey's discovery. He let me know which folks made all the important discoveries about Honey, and he corrected some errors I made in my original video. So let's run through a complete timeline of Honey's discovery, with credits to all the correct people first. The story of Honey's discovery goes back to the summer of 2005, shortly after the release of Sonic Gems collection. On the now extinct site Sonic Cult, a forum user called Sonic Blur started a thread. After creating some action replay codes to hack Sonic Gems collection, Sonic Blur discovered a character value for a previously unknown character called Honey. After some initial confusion about who this might be, another user, Cryomancer, correctly identified Honey as being a Fighting Vipers character. Because Honey's model data had been completely removed from Sonic Gems collection, a workaround to load Honey in-game was to assign Honey's character value to the head data, which is a variable used to assign move data and other bits and bobs, and force the body value to something else like Sonic. This method gave the world its first ever glimpse of Honey the cat, outside Sega AM2 probably. Another user, Omachow Abuser, would follow Sonic Blur's lead and tinker with the original arcade game values on a Model 2 emulator in order to access Honey there. Sonic Blur would try that too and share with the internet one of the most circulated early images of Honey the cat. It was also in 2005 that the very first piece of Honey fan art was created, commissioned by Biggest Sonic Fan, which is cool. What's funny about 2005 is that nobody was sure what species Honey was even after we got pictures. There was some confusion as to whether she was a cat or a bear. On January 1st, 2006, Biggest Sonic Fan took the baton and started excavating Sonic the Fighters for further secrets, discovering details like Mirror Honey's non-grayscale appearance, and eventually the fact that Honey actually had pigtails, something originally not known because of a timing issue with El-Semi's Model 2 emulator that didn't properly render them. Biggest Sonic Fan's findings were published on Sonic Cult's main site on January 2nd, 2007. Even more so than Biggest Sonic Fan's findings, it seems to have been an early piece of Honey fan art, drawn in Sonic Riders style and uploaded to DeviantArt by a user called Tracker, that led to her cult status amongst fans. Tracker would make a few pieces of Honey fan art, all with no pigtails and white ear tufts. The popularity of Tracker's pieces led to a small explosion of Honey fan art appearing on DeviantArt, which eventually became housed in the Honey the Cat Club, created by Tracker once DeviantArt's club system was introduced. When Honey first cameoed in the Archie comics on the cover of 2012's Sonic Universe issue 40, the blue-eyed and pigtailless Honey seems to be evidence of just how deeply rooted Tracker's influence was over how Honey was portrayed prior to Sonic the Fighter's re-release. Sonic the Fighter's re-released in 2012 on Xbox 360 and PS3, and Honey was included as a bonus hidden character. In my original video, I incorrectly suggested that Honey was included in the re-release solely thanks to fans uncovering her, but that's not quite the case. A press release from 2012 reveals that Sega rediscovered Honey themselves and included her as a hidden character on their own accord. Interestingly, they were at the very least aware of Honey's popularity on the internet. The press release states, "For some reason, she seems to have been well known overseas, with fan art showing up when you search for her." So fans weren't responsible for Honey the Cat re-emerging. And that is an abridged history of Honey the Cat. Now let's run through some quick-fire corrections from my original video. First, Honey doesn't have Amy's fighting stance, but one that mimics her Fighting Viper's counterpart. Although built around Amy's model, Honey's moveset is almost an exact copy of Knuckles'. Similarly, while Honey's body transforms into Amy's when crushed by Amy's Pico Pico hammer attack, Mirror Honey doesn't have this weird issue, and in fact, normal Honey does have the objects for being squashed in the arcade version, so this just seems like a weird coding glitch. Second, Honey's eyes aren't as dramatically broken as I had first read. It just appears as if Honey's eyes look more towards the camera than any other character in the original arcade game, something that was fixed in the remake. Apologies to Honey for calling her eyes creepy. Third, Honey does have a versus screen portrait that goes unused in the original arcade release. And finally, Honey's armor is probably plastic or rubber, not leather. Let's end the Honey portion of this video by sharing a few really cool new pieces of information. Honey and Amy originally had a sexy move that was removed from the final release of the game. Biggest Sonic fan has posted a few mock-ups on Twitter of how the move might have looked. All characters were designed to react to this move with a love-struck, blushing face, complete with love heart eyes. The Sonic Encyclopedia, due out later this month, gives us our first official mini profile of the character. There's one particularly interesting bit in her profile, questioning whether her wings are part of her costume or are perhaps real. That really makes you wonder. And I'm happy to report that Honey has made her IDW debut shortly after my original video. You can find her in the free Comic Book Day 2021 comic. One thing that always puzzled me about Honey is why she used to be super yellow and became a slightly darker colour after the 2012 re-release. Apparently there was a small colour issue with early arcade emulation of the game that's since been corrected since the 2012 re-release. So we have two slightly different tones for Honey. I'll end this video by sharing one final interesting fan interpretation regarding Mirror Honey. Every other character in Sonic the Fighters gets cloned during the arcade mode, and their Mirror Fighter version is just a grayscale version of themselves. When Honey gets cloned, Mirror Honey is blonde with a blue dress, a reference to the two-player colours from Honey in Fighting Vipers. What's really fun about this is that some fans online have suggested that Mirror Honey might be a separate, unique character called Candy the Cat, referencing Fighting Viper's Honey alternate name that was used in North America. What do you think about that? And that is my Team Hooligan bonus video complete. A huge thanks to the many people who helped me put this video together. I appreciate all of your help researching this one. If you want to see more Sonic the Fighters or Fighting Vipers goodies, I've put some links to Biggest Sonic Fan and Sherlock's Twitter accounts in the description. The irony of this video is that I've undoubtedly made another mistake or left something else out, but there will not be a Team Hooligan bonus video. Soon it'll be time to move on to covering characters from another game in the franchise. Stay tuned for that and for some non-Sonic videos in the future too. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you next time.